But one day he was out, watching the sheep, and this lone wolf came into camp.
Like a wolf.
Like a wolf. Not a coyote wolf, but a full-on gray timber wolf.
Stories That Live in Us is a podcast that inspires you to form deep connections with your family, past, present, and future. I'm Crista Cowan, known online as the Barefoot Genealogist. Counting down to the upcoming celebration of America's 250th birthday, you'll meet families from each state whose stories are woven into the very fabric of America. Tales of immigration, migration, courage, and community that remind us that when we tell our stories, we strengthen the bonds that connect us. So join me for season 2 as we discover from sea to shining sea, the stories that live in us. Do you ever meet someone and when you ask them the standard, so where are you from? And they tell you, and you look at them and go, yep, that's where you're from. My guest today exemplifies all things Colorado. And I've been able to work with him for the last 20 years. I've sat near him, I've heard his stories, we've interacted in a lot of different ways in a professional capacity. But I'm so excited for you to listen to the conversation that we had about his family history. Colorado seems like a pretty big, pretty wide open place. But like a lot of places in the West, you always have to wonder if the tale you're being told is a tall tale or if it really happened that way. Today you'll find out. Hear my conversation with Chris Trainor. Well, Chris, I'm so excited you're here. You and I have worked together for a long time. How long have you been at Ancestry?
Since 2006.
Okay, so you came in a couple of years after me. Felt like you'd been here longer than that.
No.
What brought you to Ancestry?
It was the publishing department. I came to do graphic design in the for Ancestry magazine when we had it.
Back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I was a customer a long time before I was an employee, and I used to get the Ancestry magazine, and I loved it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, do you have some favorite thing you worked on for the magazine that you remember?
I just enjoyed all the stories. I thought it was always fascinating, all the different oddball genealogy stories that we'd run across. In particular, the ones where there would be salesmen that had families in one part of the world and family, but neither of them knew about each other until they started doing genealogy themselves and discovered that, the whole traveling salesman really was a thing.
That was in the days before DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, yes.
Yeah. So you came in as a graphic designer. Is there, how has your career evolved in the, 18, 20 years you've been here?
I've always loved history, and I've always loved genealogy, and I've always loved all that kind of stuff. So it's funny because I was just thinking the other day, I've never been at a job that long before. It's because I'm like, I get to practice art, which graphics I've always enjoyed, and I get to participate in historical stuff and family stuff. It's really quite a good mix.
Yeah, well, you do beautiful work.
I enjoy it.
For anybody who comes to Roots Tech, they have seen your work because you have done all the graphic design for our booth and the artwork there. Anybody who listens to this podcast has seen your work because you designed the thumbnail for the podcast. So I am always in awe of your talent.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
very kind.
It's pretty impressive. So you were interested in family history before you came to Ancestry?
Yeah, I was interested in it. My grandfather, my dad's dad, he was our family genealogist. Thank you. And shortly before he died, he had asked me if I could try to find a brother that was in the first family that immigrated here from Ireland. And because he could never find him. And so in the process of finding him, looking for him, I discovered cousins I never knew. I discovered cousins that still live in where they settled in Ontario, Canada, that were big into genealogy. And there was a point where we ended up having a family reunion with them coming down to Colorado, out on the Trainor Ranch, where we all met them. But now my grandfather was, long dead, and it was pretty cool. And I found a lot of that through Ancestry before I even would ever think I was ever going to work at Ancestry.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
So you were interested before.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, I just didn't have a whole lot of,
Sure.
I was interested, but but then I got really interested when he sort of gave me a task to do.
You knew all 4 of your grandparents?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were they all alive for most of your life? Did any of them die young?
Yeah, no, they were alive for most of my life. My grandparents on my father's side, they didn't, I guess they've been dead for about 20 years or so.
Okay.
So
you were an adult by the time they passed?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was an adult by the time they were passed. So
What about your mom's side?
my mom's side, my grandfather died younger. I think I must have been about 10 or so, 10 or 11. And then my grandmother, she lived for a while longer and ended up dying when I was staying with her in her basement.
While you were living there?
While I was living there and going to school. She had a heart issue. And
where did you go to school?
I started at UVU and then went up to BYU and then ended up graduating over at the U of U.
Okay.
So I kind of
did the
college hopped.
The tour of Utah schools?
Yeah, the tour of Utah schools.
So your mom's parents are from here in Utah?
Yeah.
Okay. And then your dad's family is from?
Yeah, my mom's parents were here, raised LDS. My dad was raised Roman Catholic, and they settled he grew up in Colorado Springs, which is where I was born.
And raised?
And raised.
Okay.
No, I was born there, but then I lived some time in Rangeley, Colorado, and then did most of my growing up in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Okay.
So
Grand Junction's lovely.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It was great. It was a blast to grow up.
What was your favorite thing about growing up in Grand Junction?
Probably the fact that we had the Rocky Mountains on one side of the valley, and we had Canyonlands on the other side. And so, I mean, there was always outdoor stuff to do. And we had the Colorado River that runs right through the valley.
Yeah.
And we got big into river rafting. And so, my dad was awesome. He got us really well involved in the outdoors. And then when we were younger, he got us involved he was a city manager for the city of Rangeley. And some of our all-time best memories were when we would go do cattle drives for one of the county commissioner at the time, up there in Rangeley, and every spring and fall.
Wow.
There for a few years we'd go. But, we were kids.
Sure.
We weren't.
You weren't helping a whole lot.
We were helping, irritate the cows to keep them moving forward. But
is this like legit, like horseback riding cattle drive, or was there another way you did that back then?
No, this was legit. We weren't, because we were kids, we weren't on horses.
Okay.
But, our job was to hang out in the calf truck at the back of the herd and just, pick up any tired calves and keep an eye on them and have fun on the truck along the way.
So fun. So you have a little bit of a history of ranching in your family, yes?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
But I mean, I didn't grow up on a ranch.
Right.
Yeah.
So where does that history of ranching come in?
I think it came from the Trainor side of the family, although my mom's side had ranchers as well. But it's interesting because on the Trainors, when they immigrated from Ireland to Ontario, Canada.
Do you know about what generation or year that was?
Free land. It was around the 1820s.
Okay. Oh, so a ways back there.
Mm-hmm.
So is this like a 3 times great grandparent or?
Honestly, I think it was about a 3 or 4 times great grandparent.
Okay.
And then they immigrated from, my line immigrated from Canada on over into New York and Nebraska and ended up settling in Colorado.
And so who's the first person in your family line to end up in Colorado?
The first person that in my family line was James Trainor.
And did he settle in the same place in Colorado that you were raised, or?
Close.
Okay.
I was born in Colorado Springs, and the town that they settled in was Ordway, Colorado.
Ordway?
Ordway,
Never heard of Ordway.
which is close to Rocky Ford and Ordway are close to each other, and that is kind of close to Pueblo. It's between
Okay.
Colorado Springs and
Okay.
Pueblo, but it's right out in the middle of, the plains. Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere. They got some land there. They had a ranch. They started up a ranch, and
What were they ranching?
so this is the interesting part, because part of the family were sheep ranchers, and part of the family were cattle ranchers. The Trainors were cattle ranchers.
Okay.
Well, my great grandmother, her family settled over near Deer Trail, Colorado, and they were sheep herders.
Okay.
So I kind of would have loved to have seen what that family reunion looked like when you had big sheep herders here and cattle ranchers here.
Because they didn't always get along.
No, they definitely didn't get along. I mean, I think my family got along, but I mean, they married each other, for crying out loud, so they must have got along to some degree.
Yeah. But traditionally, sheep
But yeah,
herders and cattle
traditionally,
ranchers, like there's a competition for resources, and
oh yeah,
yeah, lots of that sometimes doesn't work out well.
yeah,
Interesting. So they married each other, and did they keep the ranch in the family?
yeah. They've kept. In fact, the ranch is still run by Trainors today.
Okay.
And though my particular line, so my great grandmother, her name was Matilda Jane Bolden, Maddie Jane. We called her Nano. She died when I was about 8.
Oh, wow.
But she married one of the Trainors. That would be my great grandfather. But then they moved into Colorado Springs because, for whatever reason, maybe ranching wasn't for them, or
It's hard work.
It's hard work, and yeah.
And as you get older, it's probably not easy to sustain, and depending on whether you have children who you expect will take it over or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as you think about growing up in that family, were there family stories that you heard? Did you come from a storytelling family at all?
Yeah, I came from a storytelling family. Probably one of the best ones that I remember, and that I actually was given an article by one of the cousins. The story had actually been published one of the Denver newspapers years back in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
And that actually gave a picture and told the story.
That's
which
rare.
was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But it had to do with my great grandmother, the Bolden side. The Boldens came from North Carolina and Virginia and Patrick County, Virginia.
And they're the sheep herders.
They're the sheep herders.
Okay.
The Boldens were the sheep herders. And they immigrated over to Deer Trail, and that's where they had one of her sisters, I should say, had a ranch, had a sheep ranch, and William, one of her brothers, decided to come out when he was 17 and help out on the sheep
From back
ranch.
east?
From back east.
Okay.
Came into Denver, took a wagon ride out to Deer Trail, out to the sheep ranch, and he wasn't there for a particular job. You just did whatever needed to be done on the ranch, and in this case, he was a sheep herder, and so he would spend his summers out there after the lamb crop, they called it. He would spend his summers out there in the sheep camps.
Just sleeping out with them.
Yeah, trying
keeping
to
them
fatten up the lambs to get them good and strong. And there were, that was within about a 15-mile radius of the home ranch itself.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was a tent, there was maybe a corral, some water, some food. I mean, it was pretty just barren.
Rustic.
Yeah, and they had one horse, at least at the camp that he was, because it was, it was his horse.
Yeah.
So it was him, and it was his, who would eventually become another great uncle, but at the time was just his
Friend.
one of his friends.
Oh, so he ended up marrying into the family?
Yeah, so his friend ended up marrying into the family. Now you got, but one day he was out, watching the sheep, and this lone wolf came into camp.
Like a wolf.
Like a wolf. Not a coyote wolf, but a full-on gray timber wolf.
Wow.
And even though timber wolves now have been reintroduced into Colorado, they were there at one point.
Wow.
And this wolf, they figured, because wolves don't normally just go attack, especially when they see a man and his dog, especially when there's a dog involved. But this one was apparently cast out. It was pretty hungry. It was pretty gaunt, but it came in and it started
for the sheep.
It came in and started going for the sheep and trying to get whatever it could. And every time it would start attacking the sheep, William, his sheepdog, would go after it. And then he would nip it in the hills, but then it would turn around and just keep at it. And then finally, when the wolf had enough, it had turned on William, my great uncle.
Yikes.
The wolf lunged at him and grabbed him up above the shoulder and, was trying to shake him and, rip, he wanted him for lunch. So he would bear hug it to keep it from.
Right. So
him and the wolf are entangled in this mass, and they're rolling on the ground, and the dog's going crazy, and, he's getting faint, holding on as hard as he could, because that was the only way to keep the wolf. He noticed he couldn't quite bite him as hard, and he couldn't
shake him.
And so while they're rolling around on the ground, he managed with the free arm to pull out a knife. He had just a single blade lock knife that he managed to pull out of his pocket, but he was in such a position, and the wolf was, that he couldn't quite stab it, and he tried getting it, but there was a point where he heard it enough that it rolled over on one side, and he let go just for a split second and then latched back on, and he was able to get it and finally get it between his ribs and finally managed to kill the wolf. But when the wolf died, his jaw stayed locked on him, on William, on his arm. So, this had gone on. It was quite the struggle. It wasn't just a quick little bite and a release. It was so he was spent. He was totally
and
worn
probably
out.
bleeding a lot.
A lot. I'm sure he's in shock, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
The wolf's dead, but his jaws, he couldn't even stand up.
And timber wolves are big.
They're big. This one was 7 feet from tip to tip.
Whoa.
He couldn't do anything. He couldn't move. He was the only one out there. He was, away from his camp. And he was just hoping that, because the sheep would automatically start heading home for grain. He's out there calling out, and his partner, Charlie Clifton, who would eventually marry into the family and be another great uncle, took him an hour to find him, locate him, and came out, saw the wolf attached to him, locked jawed, and found an old fence post and pried his jaws open to get him off his arm. And then that night they spent back at camp putting salt packs on. And then early in the morning, they made the trip, the 14-mile trip to the ranch house, and then another 50 miles to Denver. And Denver at the time, it was the very first hospital, and they only had one room ready for him. One room. So they went in there, and, back in those days, rabies, you see this lone wolf, he's probably rabid. And so there wasn't a cure for that. The only cure that they did have, which was probably more of a wives' tale, I don't know if it actually worked, but was called a madstone that they would put on it.
I don't know what that is.
A madstone is a mass that is found in a wild deer's stomach.
Okay.
And what they would do is they would take that and this madstone and they would put it on.
Is it like a paste or a clay?
It's just a solid clump of hair and matter.
Okay.
And they would take that and they would put it on the wound because it was thought that it would then pull out the poisons. And then it would fall off, and then they would take that and then they would soak it in milk and for about a day or so, and then that would clean out the poisons, and then they would repeat again.
Wow.
And they would keep doing that until they felt like.
And hope you didn't contract rabies.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he ended up recovering. So it either worked or
never had rabies.
Or never had never had rabies.
But like, was his arm usable? I mean, getting shredded by a wolf like that, that's...
Yeah, it was. Yeah, he had scars and whatnot. It took quite a few, stitches all up and down his arm. But yeah, he was able to continue on. In fact, he had the wolf stuffed and then he would take pictures of him in different stances with the wolf. And
my goodness.
He had put the wolf in kind of an attack mode when he had it stuffed. And in fact, the wolf to this day is down there on the ranch.
Oh, really?
So when we went down there to brand cattle several years ago, that's kind of when the stories came up about that wolf. So.
And it's so funny because you see something like that and people start telling stories about something like that. And you always have to wonder, like, how true is this story really?
Yes.
Right? But you found, like, there's a newspaper article about it.
There's a newspaper article about it. And not only is there that, but in the newspaper, at the end of the article, there are people questioning whether this is true, like what you're saying. And so William, he wasn't the one that wrote the article, but they got a hold of him. And William was able to put them in touch, and himself told them, I'm the one that this happened to, and this is exactly how it happened. And so there were other people that wrote in to verify, no, this really happened, as bizarre as that is.
That's crazy. And it seems like, I don't know, like, I think we think a lot about like the Western United States and all the cattle and ranching and sheep herders. And, we have that here in Utah, Montana, Wyoming. Colorado, like, just has, like, it has the plains, it has the Rockies. I think now we associate it a lot more with skiing and outdoor adventure, but its origins really are...
Oh, it's its origins are ranching. It's ranching.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And there's a lot of, even to this day, there are a lot of ranches. And, one of my cousins who owns the ranch now is a very successful rancher down there still, and has quite the cattle business going.
How does that work? Like,
and he's highly involved in the community, which is really cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How does that work with like the inheritance of the ranch? Like, who decides? Is it just who wants it? Like,
honestly don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
I wish I knew that. I don't know. I don't know how that worked out. I don't,
Yeah, I think some of it, in some families, it's just whoever wants it, right? Because not everybody does want that life.
Yeah, and I think my grandfather, and I think my great grandmother, they didn't want that life, or they found something else that they wanted. But it is interesting that the family's been so into the outdoors, and we've had so many good ranching opportunities that, I don't know, it feels like home.
Well, and I love that. I love that even though it's not like the place you were raised, you still have a connection to that family land and all the stories that come with that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of good stories, and, a lot of good family connections. And what's cool though, is you get a lot of the old timers that are now more genealogists as well, that either grew up on that ranch at one point or another, or, that they'll have been in touch with me with genealogy and so it's like, it's cool because although that was history, you still get live history happening right now. You're still in touch with some of these people.
Yeah, maintaining
Some
those
of my
connections.
cousins and uncles, and they've got a whole lot more stories.
Yeah, that's really cool. So as you think about you have how many children?
I've got 4 kids.
4 kids, okay.
Mhm.
And did you have they ever been to the ranch?
No,
No.
no, they've never been to the ranch. One day I should take them down there.
Yeah. Well, now you're a grandpa.
Now I'm a
How many
grandpa.
grandkids?
I've got 5 grandkids.
Two that were just born, right?
2 that were just barely born.
Wow. Okay. So they're all still little.
Oh yeah.
So as you think about the kind of grandpa you want to be, what does that look like? Are these stories going to perpetuate? Are they going to become tall tales? Are you going to take them to the ranch? What does that look like?
All of the above. I'm just kidding. No, I would love to take them, out to have experiences like that.
Yeah.
And, I've had friends that have had ranches that I've been able to take my kids to, that I look for those opportunities so that they can kind of see what it was like. And, they loved it. They really enjoyed it. I would actually really love to take them someday down to go see that ranch and see.
See the wolf.
Right. And I haven't been there since, man, must have been when I was about 18 was the last time. And I'm 51 now. So
It's been a minute.
it's been a minute. I mean, if I showed up on the ranch now, I better have my genealogy tree on it to show that, I do belong to this family. I promise. I'm not just a stranger walking in here.
Well, and I imagine there's some kind of a responsibility of the person who owns the ranch today to be welcoming to people like you as you come back.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they would be for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fun.
Because, my dad, he spent some time down there, and they would know.
Yeah.
They would know they would know my dad and my grandfather.
Yeah, I love that.
So.
Well, as you think about Colorado, right, as a character in your life story, what does it mean to you to be from Colorado?
I loved Colorado. If you like the outdoors and if you love mountains and canyons and, cows and animals and hunting and fishing, wild frontier a little bit. Because, I was a kid there. I grew up there. And it wasn't until I was about 21 that I left and came to Utah, another awesome state. And I've been here ever since. And so it's, to me, Utah and Colorado just kind of, to me, just feels like one big...
We're sibling states.
Yeah, sibling states.
That's amazing. Do you still have family other than the Trainor Ranch in Colorado?
Yes, I do. My brother actually is the city manager for Fountain, Colorado, which is just part of Colorado Springs, or just south of Colorado Springs. And, and I've got aunts and uncles that still live down there and cousins, and, we get together every now and then, and it's a lot of fun. Most of the trainers are all still over there in Colorado Springs.
Sounds like maybe you need to take your kids and grandkids and see if you can have a reunion on the ranch.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Awesome. Go brand some cows again.
There you go. Well, I know somewhere you can get a giant printed family tree so that you can make sure everybody knows how they're related.
That'd be awesome.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your family and your love of Colorado and that amazing wolf story. Super fun.
You bet. Thank you.
Studio sponsored by Ancestry.